everyone, welcome to another video and another day in my studio. It's been ages since I've actually sat down and used my big sketchbooks. For a long time I've been using either my iPads or just going, my iPad, or just my small sketchbooks, going out sketching in cafes and things. And it's ages since I've actually sat down and done observational sketching because I've got my ornaments here. I'm going to draw those, but I'm going to let ideas spark from these, and I'm just going to time myself for like an hour and do a bunch of quick sketches of things that I see, and then just see if any ideas come from that, if I want to develop anything. Like, one thing that I like to try and do, so I'll take ornaments like this little dude. I'll try and draw them realistically, but quickly, and then I will try and think, how would this cat look standing up? How would it look running, jumping, crouching? You know, things that aren't actually here for me to draw. I've got to use my imagination muscles. And sometimes that leads to character ideas or like story ideas as my brain's working in the background. Sometimes it doesn't, and that's fine. What it does do is give me the chance to practice. And what I'm using here is a brush pen. I've just got the urge to draw with some brush pens. So this is just full of water and some Ecoline watercolour, and this is black. I don't normally use black paint because I like to either use blue or brown or mix a black out of blue and brown, which works quite well. I thought it might be good to get some tonal work. Maybe I also have some brushes that don't have anything in, so I can always use those to, I don't know, it might not even work. I might go to a new material, but I've got stuff here that I can use. It's basically going to be low pressure. So firstly I'm going to just low pressure draw what I see. Some of these brushes are a little bit worse for wear, so they've gone a little bit messy on the end, but let's just see. The thing with big chunky materials like this is that I really need to work big, and even this is not big enough. But it's just a little bit of play, so I am giving myself the grace to make things that don't look like things. And I think that's really important when you are someone who wants to create and wants to get better at creating. You've got to remember, and you've got to know and really know it, because for a long time I knew this but I didn't know it, that you've got to allow yourself to make mistakes and be messy. For a long time I didn't allow myself that I wasn't graceful in that kind of way for myself. I wasn't living by the rule of I've got to make mistakes and I am allowed to play. Like kids do. Kids play when they do art at school, or when I did art at school anyway. You were allowed to make a mess. Like, yeah, teachers would try and guide you a little bit, but when you were very young, you were kind of allowed the ability to just blob and have fun, move your paintbrush around on the paper, and things didn't necessarily look like the thing you were drawing, but you had that freedom. And I think sometimes as an adult you forget that you also need that freedom. And freedom from, not just the freedom to do the thing, but the freedom from the negative implications that you're going to put on yourself. Like, yeah, you can make a mess, but if you've got to do it enough and frequently enough that you're not, it doesn't hurt your heart when you make mistakes. It's not like, yes, I know I can make mistakes, but every time I do, I hate myself and I feel like I can't draw, and then I go for months without picking up my sketchbook, which is kind of where I was for a while. I used to know that I could make mistakes, but hated making mistakes. I wanted everything to be perfect and beautiful, and it's really only the last few years that I've given myself the freedom and the permission almost to be able to make those mistakes. If you want to hear more about that, I do have a video all about it, which is, it's a sketchbook tour, but I also go into my journey of kind of acceptance and discovery, which has really, really helped develop my work. I've just sprayed this with a bit of water because the problem with these cheaper sketchbooks, which isn't a problem because I like working in cheap sketchbooks because you don't feel like you're wasting things if you make a mistake, but the paper is very absorbent. So if you try and use something like this, you're constantly, because you've got to squeeze these pens to get the paint out, but you're constantly squeezing to get the paint out because it absorbs it all so quickly, so you can't really get a good flow. But that's fine, I'm just messing around, so not overly bothered. But yeah, go and have a look at that video if you want to see kind of my journey into kind of accepting my mistakes and actually becoming the best creative that I've ever been. And I'm saying that not trying to toot my own horn, but I am making, I know people who are less involved in the kind of the daily kind of art world yourself, you might look at my work and go, oh, well, it looks like a child has done it. Yes, it does. And that freedom is what makes my work the best it's been. I'm not saying this is the best work that I'm doing, because this is just sketchbook play, but because I've allowed myself the freedom to do sketchbook play without it hurting my heart if it goes messy, like actually playing, it's allowed me to transfer that freedom into my finished work. And I think I am making the best work. I don't think I am. I'm definitely making the best work of my life. And I think it is all down to allowing yourself the freedom to play and experiment and allowing yourself to be wrong and make mistakes. Because you'll do things when you're playing in your sketchbook. Sometimes it'll be like, genius, now I've worked out how to, I don't know, make shadows in my work and how to do this and do that. And sometimes it's going to be like, oh, genius, now I've just spent all of this material doing, and now I know that doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? It's, the mistakes are as important as the revelations of how you do stuff. Like learning how not to do stuff as well is just as important. If you only ever look for how to do something brilliantly and never learn how not to do something, you only ever get 50% of learning it. Does that even make sense? I don't even know if that makes sense. Anyway, that's what I think. So that ended up being almost exactly an hour. And that's all I really wanted to spend today on this task. This kind of thing is a really good task to do, good exercise to do when you want to be creative but you don't know how. And can I suggest these big cheap sketchbooks? You can pick them up in like lots of art shops. Any kind of cheap paper. You could even use like the back of cereal packets and things like that. Stuff that's not precious, that you're not going to be like worried to use. For example, I've got some up there. I've got some watercolour sketchbooks which cost a lot of money. Watercolour paper isn't the cheapest paper. And I don't use them because I feel like I've got to save it for best, you know? So I never play, never experiment. I never have those kind of days where I just, you know, blob with a brush pen and just have a little bit of fun making marks. Low pressure, low expectation results. So this exercise is really good for those days when you want to do something, but you don't necessarily feel like putting your heart and soul into a finished piece. So like I said earlier, I have ornaments here that I've been using as inspiration. Sometimes, I think a lot of these are just me drawing them accurately, so in the positions that I see them in. Again, no expectation about them turning out a certain way. I've been working as quickly as I can, bearing in mind, like I said before, that the paper's really dry. I've nearly ran out of all of the ink in there, and the spray bottle that I was using to try and wet the paper to make this flow a little bit more, that's all gone. A hairdryer is very useful for these kind of sessions, just for drying your page before you turn the next one over. But yeah, I've been working quickly, trying to get like kind of semi-accurate representations down, and then every now and then I'll have a play around with trying to make these things, like how would they be if they were running, if they were sleeping and that kind of stuff. Tell you what I am pleased with. I'm pleased with this one. This is a drawing of this ornament which has been knocking around my house since I was a kid, and I've never really been able to make it into anything. Even when I was a kid, when I was looking at it, I kind of knew it was meant to be a lion, but it always looked a bit like a gorilla or something to me. And in this quick sketch, I think I've really managed to not only make it look like a lion, but I've managed to capture this. So it's not like a million miles away from that ornament. So yeah, my brain's finally worked out what that looks like now. Another one that I'm really pleased with is this page. So not necessarily this one, but you know, like I say, it all serves a purpose, even stuff that doesn't turn out how you've expected. This long-necked cat walking, I don't know, pleases me. Will it become anything? I don't know. I'm not doing this as an exercise to make characters. This is a no pressure exercise, like no pressure altogether. This is an exercise of just playing. If I went at this exercise with the intention of, right, I'm going to make some characters, I'm going to develop some stories, I know for a fact that they wouldn't come. But giving yourself a place where your hand's moving and your brain's doing its own thing in the background, it's fertile ground for ideas to come. And if they do come, brilliant. You can write them down. I've got a notebook, and if like an idea for a story comes or a character, I can write it down there. If it doesn't come, no big deal. What I've done is practiced some stuff and had a nice fun hour of just blobbing paints around. This exercise is more to keep your creative muscles ticking over rather than to create anything A, that's beautiful, B, that's got a point, or C, that's beautiful and got a point. You know, just let your creative muscles have an opportunity to just mindlessly go blah on the page. And like I say, if your brain's just not thinking too much about making anything in particular, your hands is moving and your kind of observation part of your brain is working. But if it's just those things that are working, and then the main part of your thinking brain isn't trying to make this into anything, you are letting your mind wander, and who knows what ideas may come from that kind of environment. So why not give this exercise a little go yourself if you've got an hour to spare in the afternoon? You never know what ideas may come from it. But this is where I'm going to leave this video today. Thanks so much for joining me today, and hopefully I will catch you in the next one. So until then, bye.